The making of a dictator, Putin's rise and Russia's descent. Vladimir Putin's Russia is a far cry from the hopeful, chaotic country that emerged from the ashes of the Soviet Union. Once seen as a potential partner in building a new world order, Russia has descended into a personalist dictatorship, its trajectory shaped by Putin's iron grip on power. Putin's rise to power was marked by a carefully crafted image as a strong leader, a man who could restore order and stability after the turbulent Yeltsin years. But beneath the veneer of competence lurked a darker ambition, a desire to amass power and crush any opposition. Putin's early years in power saw the systematic dismantling of democratic institutions. Independent media outlets were silenced, their voices replaced by state-controlled propaganda. Political opponents were sidelined, imprisoned, or met with untimely ends. The rule of law was eroded, replaced by a system where loyalty to Putin trumped any sense of justice or accountability. Over time, Russia transformed into a state where power flowed directly from Putin. He became the embodiment of the nation, his interests synonymous with Russia's destiny. This dangerous conflation of personal ambition and national identity has had disastrous consequences both for Russia and the world. Putin's transformation of Russia is a stark reminder that the journey from democracy to dictatorship can be insidious, often masked by promises of stability and order. It is a cautionary tale for democracies around the world, a reminder that the erosion of democratic norms and institutions can have devastating consequences. The iron fist centralizing power and crushing dissent. Putin's control over Russia is absolute. He has systematically centralized power, ensuring that all levers of government are firmly in his grasp. The parliament, once a forum for debate and dissent, has been reduced to a rubber stamp, approving Putin's decrees without question. The judiciary, meant to be an independent arbiter of justice, operates as an extension of Putin's will. Show trials and politically motivated prosecutions have become commonplace, used to silence critics and instill fear in anyone who dares to challenge the regime. The security services, once tasked with protecting the nation, have been transformed into instruments of repression. They operate with impunity, silencing dissent, intimidating journalists, and targeting anyone deemed a threat to Putin's grip on power. The message is clear: opposition to Putin will not be tolerated. The consequences of dissent can be severe, ranging from harassment and intimidation to imprisonment and even death. This climate of fear has stifled civil society, silenced independent voices, and created a society where self-censorship is the norm. Zero-sum game. Russia's confrontational foreign policy. Russia, under Putin's leadership, views the world through a zero-sum lens. It is a worldview rooted in suspicion and resentment, a belief that any gain for the West is inherently a loss for Russia. This dangerous mindset has led to a foreign policy characterized by aggression, destabilization, and a blatant disregard for international norms. The invasion of Ukraine is a stark example of Russia's zero-sum mentality in action. Putin's belief that Ukraine is rightfully part of Russia's sphere of influence, coupled with his fear of NATO expansion, led to a brutal and unprovoked war. But the invasion of Ukraine is just one manifestation of Russia's confrontational foreign policy. From meddling in Western elections to supporting rogue regimes, Russia has consistently sought to undermine the liberal international order and sow discord among democratic nations. Russia's actions on the world stage are not those of a confident rising power. They are the actions of a regime gripped by insecurity, a regime that views the world as a hostile place where only the strong survive. This zero-sum mentality is a dangerous anachronism in an increasingly interconnected world, a recipe for conflict and instability. Section 4. The West as enemy, fueling a narrative of grievance and threat. Central to Putin's grip on power is a carefully constructed narrative of grievance and threat. This narrative, relentlessly peddled by state-controlled media, paints Russia as a besieged fortress, surrounded by enemies determined to weaken and humiliate it. The West, with its democratic values and commitment to individual liberty, is cast as the primary antagonist in this narrative. NATO expansion, Western sanctions, and the promotion of democracy are all portrayed as evidence of the West's malicious intent. This narrative of grievance serves several purposes. It distracts from the regime's own failings, providing a convenient scapegoat for Russia's economic woes and social problems. It fuels a sense of nationalism and patriotism, rallying the population around the flag and silencing dissent. Most importantly, this narrative of threat justifies Putin's authoritarianism. It allows him to present himself as the indispensable man, the only one capable of protecting Russia from its enemies. This manufactured sense of crisis is the lifeblood of Putin's regime, a tool used to maintain control and justify repression. Section 5. United against the West. The rise of the BRICS plus bloc. Putin's Russia is not alone in its hostility towards the West. It has found common cause with other authoritarian regimes, forming alliances that challenge the liberal international order and promote an alternative vision of global governance. The BRICS plus bloc, a loose grouping of nations including China, India, Brazil, South Africa, and others, has emerged as a powerful symbol of this anti-Western sentiment. These countries, many of them with their own authoritarian tendencies, share Russia's resentment of Western dominance and its desire for a more multipolar world. The BRICS plus bloc is not a monolithic entity, and its members often have divergent interests. However, they are united in their opposition to what they perceive as Western hypocrisy and double standards. The bloc's growing influence is a cause for concern. Its members represent a significant portion of the world's population and economic output, giving them considerable leverage on the world stage. Their collective voice has the potential to undermine efforts to address global challenges such as climate change, pandemics, and nuclear proliferation. Section 6. Dictators on the battlefield. North Korea's presence in Ukraine. The lines between autocratic regimes are blurring, and nowhere is this more evident than on the battlefields of Ukraine. The presence of North Korean troops fighting alongside Russian forces is a chilling reminder of the growing nexus between dictatorships and the threat they pose to global security. North Korea's involvement in the conflict is driven by a number of factors. For Kim Jong-un, it is an opportunity to curry favor with Russia, securing much-needed economic and military aid. It also allows him to test his weapons and tactics in a real-world setting, gaining valuable experience for his own military. For Putin, the deployment of North Korean troops is a sign of desperation, an indication that Russia's own military is struggling to achieve its objectives in Ukraine. The international community has condemned North Korea's involvement in the conflict, but condemnation alone is not enough. The presence of North Korean troops in Ukraine is a dangerous escalation of the conflict, raising the stakes and increasing the risk of miscalculation.